Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this Inside the Operating Room, hosted by the Latino Surgical Society. And we have an amazing speaker that you'll hear more from and will be introduced formally with Dr. Chantal Reyna as a friend and an amazing breast surgeon. And so we look forward to her talk this evening. I'm Gazo Ortega, and I'm one of the co-founders of the Latino Surgical Society. And I am also faculty in the Department of Surgery at Brigham and Women's Hospital, and specifically at the Center for Surgery and Public Health. And what I want to share with you all is just kind of give you a few updates on what's been happening and also what the mission and some of our institutional members are. And so the Latino Surgical Society was established to cultivate, nature, and nurture and support the advancement of Latino surgeons. And along with that, we have our platinum, silver, and bronze members who have been extremely supportive, and we wanted to make sure we acknowledge their support in keeping our programming and as well as our organization moving forward. And with that, I also want to highlight two of our Inside the Operating Room directors, Dr. Sofia and Dr. Rick Vavolisa, who are amazing general surgery residents and have, played a integral role in leading our Inside the Operating Room series. I also just want to thank everyone who attended the American College of Surgeons luncheon that we held. It was a great success here. You can see a picture of all those who were present. We had a lot of fun networking, meeting new members, interacting with new faces, and just sharing with not only other co-founders, but also some of our advisory board members. And it was a great opportunity for us, again, to share and just learn more and to share more about the Latino Surgical Society. And so with that, I am going to just, ask that I now am going to pass the mic over to Dr. Sofia, who will
Thank you, Dr. Ortega, and welcome, Dr. Reyna. We're so excited to have you here today. On behalf of me, Rick, and Haldo, we are very excited to be discussing and learning a little bit about you today. And then I'm just going to start saying a little bit about what Dr. Reyna has done in this amazing career. And so Dr. Reyna is a fellowship-trained, board-certified surgeon specializing in diseases of the breast. She completed a general surgery residency at the University of Nevada School of Medicine, University Medical Center, and Children's Hospital of Nevada. Following her passion for breast cancer care, she pursued a fellowship in breast surgical oncology at the H. Lee Moffitt Cancer Center and Research Institute in Tampa, Florida. And she's now the medical director of the breast program and chief of breast surgery at Crozer Health. Her research interests include minimizing axillary surgery. She is a member of the Society of Surgical Oncology, the American Society of Breast Surgeons, and Association of Women Surgeons. She holds committee positions in several organizations. She is an avid soccer fan and enjoys reading and traveling internationally. Welcome, Dr. Reyna, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been such an honor to be able to be here with you today.
Let's start by talking a little bit about your background. Where do you come from? Why medicine? Why breast surgical oncology as a career?
So we'll start with the easiest. Where do I come from? I have actually crossed the country in both ways throughout my life so far. I was born in Southern California and then moved to Nevada. So I'm one of the few people who actually grew up in a small town outside of Las Vegas. It was the only non-gambling city in the entire state. There was a casino on both sides, but nothing right in the middle. So from there, I ended up staying, as you may have heard, I actually received a soccer scholarship to go to the University of Nevada, and I was the inaugural goalkeeper for the women's team. We were Division I. It was such an experience and such a wonderful background. I ended up then becoming a resident advisor and working through college and doing that part of it, and eventually decided that, I'm going to go to medical school. And as you heard, I went to general surgery in Nevada and then did H. Lee Moffitt Cancer Center for breast cancer. Now, you asked me, why did I choose breast, right? All right. So when I was young, I was a very active child. I played lots of sports. I did many things. And when I was about 7 years old, I broke my ankle. I actually had a bone chip in my ankle. I was in and out of casts for about 7 years until I was about 14. And then I had a small procedure and had that removed and never had any other issues since. And after that, I was able to get a soccer scholarship and help get my way through college. That being said, is that one small orthopedic procedure changed my life. It impacted me so much. And as a result, I said, oh, I'm doing medicine. I'm doing ortho, right? My 21st birthday, I flew down from college. I went and worked with an orthopedic surgeon, saw what a case was like. And I was like, man, ortho is so cool. I get to hit things and do stuff. And now I work in a breast. You're like, where did that come from? I love breast. The patients are wonderful. I love the disease process, the patients. And it's one of the things in surgery that you get a lot of longevity. So I get to see my patients every year. I get to see how they're doing. And so it's just been a really wonderful, wonderful thing. And it's a multidisciplinary. You work with a team. I get to interact with a bunch of different people. And so from that standpoint, it was everything I was looking for.
Thank you. I think we learned a little bit more about you, and I'm also an avid soccer fan and also played soccer. I'm so very excited to hear that part too. Speaking a little bit more about your educational journey, in particular, can you tell us a tipping point in your career that propelled you forward in a direction that you may not have thought possible or expected at the time?
I'm going to flip that a little bit. And then I will say, from my standpoint, something that really, I've always been very driven. I've always known that I wanted to go into medicine. I always knew that this is the way I'm going to get there. And I knew I had to study and I had to, get good grades, but I also knew I wasn't going to get there without having to work, without doing those kind of items. So from an education standpoint, I was honored. I was actually one of the dean scholars, and it was that kind of moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I just graduated college. I had, the top GPA. I'm a Westfall scholar, and I said, wow, I've done something, and I felt like very accomplished, and I felt like this is where I was going to be. So from that standpoint, that was something that really made me feel accomplished and that I was supposed to be there. And then you get to medical school and then residency, and you're like, oh no, is this right? You kind of go through that all again. But from that standpoint, that's really where it came from. But to flip it the other way, something that really gave me a pause is, as I told you, I had the highest GPA for my college and within my College of Science. And I was like, oh man, I got great grades. I'm a resident advisor. I'm a student athlete. I'm doing all these things right. I took my MCAT, which was terrible. I got like a 25. I was like, okay, I'm not that bad, really. But I have all these things going for me. And I was actually waitlisted at my home institution. So I look back and I say, wow. And at the time I said, what did I do wrong? I like to believe I'm personable. I like to think I didn't totally blow the interview, but that was something where, like, what did I learn from that? And where do I go from there? And how did I take that? Because going into it, you're like, okay, I've put everything in place. Here's all my plan. Here's everything. I'm this. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm waitlisted. Like, what happened?
Wow, I completely can relate. And I think that, for the medical students and for the residents that are watching this, hearing how, the struggle and all the experiences that happens when you have to go through this. And you mentioned like the different changes through medical school and then residency and how you have all those feelings all over again. I was wondering if you could tell us during whether it's medical school or before that, growing up, who were some of your greatest role models?
So I will have to say that my family gets full credit in role models. I will say that my father is one of my biggest role models. So he came to the US when he was about 20 years old, not speaking English. Met my mom, they got married. They're an interracial couple, so that couldn't have been easy. But he has worked his entire life to support and give a better chance for his family to do more and get the education we want. And I don't think anyone has taught me sacrifice as much as he has. We lived in California for 10 years, and then he and my mom decided, you know what, we're going to move our family. We need to do something else for them. And he kept working in Los Angeles, and he commuted every week, Monday through Friday. He'd be in Los Angeles, and he only came up on the weekends. So that was our life for 22 years. My dad did that just to make sure that we were in the right school area, to make sure that we had all our opportunities. But he never missed a soccer game. He never missed a tournament. He never missed a dance. Like, he was always there, and he would try to make it up so he could pick me up from school on Fridays, like when he got up to town. So when I say who are my role models, I will say my parents and the sacrifice that they put in to make sure that we had the life that we needed to lead. My mom worked the entire time. And so I can say that my work ethic and my values are from them. And I will get teary because it's very emotional.
That's amazing. And like you said, the sacrifice and, the continue that hard work coming from them, I completely understand how you can see them as your biggest role models. If you could give that younger Dr. Reyna some advice, what advice would you give her?
I would definitely say, and I would give this to anyone at this point now, being where I am, it is knowing your worth and having that internal validation. As I told you earlier, I said, okay, I graduated with these things. I got this Dean Scholar, and I said, yes, I finally made it. And I would say, I wish I had known sooner, like, my own worth. Like, I didn't need that external validation. It was great to have, don't get me wrong. But to say, like, I deserve this and I'm worthy of this, and being able to internalize that sooner would have been my biggest thing.
Wow, that's super important. I completely agree. And speaking a little bit about that, what do you think has been the greatest obstacle in your career advancement so far?
The biggest obstacle. I honestly have to think about that. It really, I've done much better as I've become older. I've had a lot more sponsors, a lot more mentors, a lot more people that, I can see what they are, like who they are, where they want to be. And I've been able to have that. I think being younger and not having seen anyone of my race, of anything along those lines, knowing I was coming into this, I said, when was the first time I saw, a Latino doctor? And I can't remember. I cannot remember. The first person I could think of was a pediatric surgeon who was an attending who had just graduated. That was probably the first person I could remember off the top of my head. So from that standpoint, that's probably my biggest obstacles. I knew I wanted to get there, but I didn't know how to do it. And my family, not being in medicine, not knowing the pathways, I struggled to figure out what did I need to put in place to get there. I knew I needed to get there. I just didn't know all the steps, and I fumbled a lot, Did I need to be a part of this organization? Did I need to be like a candy striper? Did I need to have this community service? And that was probably my biggest obstacle to get to where I am. And then once I hit medical school and residency, I had so much support and so many sponsors and mentors that I cannot say that enough about them. And I probably will, name drop them as they go along, because they've been so important to me. Yes, I give mom, dad a lot of credit for the early stuff, but like professional wise, there is so many people who have helped.
That's incredible. And I think that's one of the most important, I would say, gifts that we give medical students or undergrads or high school students when they're watching these webinars. We give them those role models to follow, and we want to share and highlight, your career, everything you've done so far, so you can also continue being an example for so many people that want to have those tools and want to get to that goal of, getting into medical school, being a resident, eventually an attending, and chief of breast surgery. And so I think it's amazing. And I think this is very important. And you mentioned it a little. And so through medical school, or more through your training, who would you say were your more important, or like the most memorable mentors you've had?
So someone just popped up on the screen that I'm going to definitely name. So Beth Shaughnessy, who is the immediate past president of the Association of Women Surgeons. She was also my partner at the University of Cincinnati, and she has been nothing but supportive Christine Laranga has always been very supportive and has sponsored me. I know Kelly Hunt has been, Meta Get to Show Me. Like, there have been so many. And so if you're watching this and I don't name you, please do not take anything. I love everybody that I've worked with, and everyone's been fantastic. Dan Kurgan and Jennifer Benosa and Deb Cools have also been amazing people.
I have a question for you, and I'm not sure why I'm labeled also Anna Sofia. But you know, in terms of your younger self, if you could give yourself some advice growing up, what would you say to your younger self?
So I'm glad that you asked. So we touched base a little bit about internal validation. That was one of my bigger things. I think the other thing I would give myself advice on would be always understand that you're going to get there. And sometimes you just need to pause. I'm a very energetic person. I'm a very go, go, go. I'm ready to get things done. And so I would say for my younger person is like, it's okay to take a step back and live your life. It's okay to not have everything planned. It's okay to say, all right, we're going to get there, but we also need to enjoy the moment that we're in.
Relative to that, then, switching back a few more gears, has there been any major obstacles in your getting where you are now?
Good. I can try to answer this a little bit better. I would say the main obstacle was not knowing the path on how to get there when I was younger. I just did not have the guidance. I had the support. My family, as I told you earlier, has been amazing. They did everything they possibly could to get me to where I want to be. They knew this was the place. They've sacrificed, but not knowing the path, not having anyone else I knew that went into medicine. And my orthopedic surgeon, his daughter was actually a friend of mine at the time, but that was the closest I came. I didn't know the path. I didn't know what I needed to do. Even meeting like with pre-med advisors, it just wasn't quite the same, and I didn't understand. So that was probably my biggest struggle, is just not knowing the best way.
I can relate.
And standardized test. One standardized test, MCAT.
Yes. So for younger persons, coming up through residency pretty early on in their careers as an attending, or maybe even medical students, any advice that you would suggest that they do or take in terms of going forward?
So I want to give a personal advice and some residency advice here, or training advice or progress. Let's see, professional development. Personal advice is know yourself, be comfortable with yourself. A lot of self-awareness, and people start talking about emotional intelligence and things like that. It really comes down to, what are your core values? What do you want to do? The sooner you identify those, the easier the path is, I think. Professionally, it really is. This is a small world. It's a small community. And, we need to be able to help and support each other, and just being there, being accessible to people, so that one day you can be this person chatting about your experience and just trying to be the role model and try to say it's possible, and be the face out there that shows them that they can.
So you were talking about personal things too. Maybe if you could address, I know you have a life outside of surgery and outside of the OR. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yes.
What's your joy? What gives you joy?
There are many things that give me joy. So one of the things we talked about earlier, soccer. So for those who don't know, because if you don't know, I love soccer. Big fan, played at D1, right? So this has always been a part of me. I go to the World Cup every 4 years. So in fact, I will be going to the World Cup in the next 3 weeks. Go watch a game. Actually, my husband just texted me a picture. We have our tickets. And I was like, great. So I love soccer, love watching it, travel there. It's the way I combine my passion for international travel. So I also try to get out of the country about 2 to 3 times a year and go learn a different culture, see different places, and just really do those things. And then reading. Those are my 3 big things. Although don't get me wrong, I can binge Netflix like no other, or Hulu, like I can do that, not a problem. But I really enjoy traveling, soccer, and reading.
Anything that you're thinking of doing or planning to do in the near future besides the soccer game?
Let's see. So I am going to Amsterdam in the spring. My husband is big into some paintings and things, so we're going to go and look at some of the Dutch art that's there. From that standpoint, most of my stuff derives around trips and what kind of food I can eat on those trips. I don't know if anyone knows like the Awkward Yeti, but there's this one comic where it's they personify each of the organs, so brain, heart, tongue. And at one point, the tongue saying, we're going on a trip. We have to plan all our meals. They're like, we're not planning the trip around you, tongue. I was like, no, we are. And that it's so true. Like, that's what it is. I was like, we plan the trip around foods and meals because that's what I enjoy doing.
That's wonderful. I love it. I'm right up there with you. I can't travel quite as frequently, but when I travel, I make sure we find the right restaurants. It's not always easy. It's not always easy. And sometimes you find out you should have planned a whole lot earlier. But, you do what you got to do.
But sometimes those give the best adventures, right?
True.
And so that's why, like, we're traveling and something goes wrong, I'm just like, adventure, let's just go with it. You got to have some flexibility, and you'll never know what happens when you just go with it sometimes.
Now, did you mention, I'll best just say this. Did you say anything at all, since I apologize, coming home late? It was not part of the plan. So you've talked about your life outside of the OR. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be in the OR.
The OR is a very wonderful place. I love being in the operating room. So for those who have been near me, and I mainly, look at Dr. Shaughnessy, I love laughter in the operating room. I want people to be having a good time in the operating room. I think a positive environment is one of the best environments. I think it has a lot of, psychological safety. I think it's just everyone feels comfortable, and it makes the time go a little bit better. I will always have music playing, except today I forgot to put on the music, but I usually have music playing. It's typically musicals. And so between Hamilton and Encanto and a bunch of other things, that's my happy things. But that's what I try to do. I really want it to be a good atmosphere. Don't get me wrong, if we need to focus, we will focus. But for the most part, I really want to be able to educate in a safe environment. I want to be able to take care of patients. I want people to enjoy being there, because I'm happy to be there, and I would like everybody else to be.
I agree. But you also know that I'm also very picky about music, and I always make sure that there's music. And sometimes I have my separate music selections for those persons who are undergoing surgery under sedation versus those who are undergoing surgery under a general anesthetic. And I will ask the patient if they would like to hear something specifically or a particular genre. I know. But this is not my interview of me. This is my interview of you and moderating.
But we get to learn about each other, because I think that's a great idea. I actually think it's a good idea. I might have to borrow it and give you credit.
Well, it's the case that when somebody is not completely asleep, put under, they can, kind of hover there near consciousness. And I try to play very soothing music at that point in time, especially if they're just, going to sleep or getting sedated. And it also helps too to, sort of like gauge the room and see, okay, what's going on in the room? Do I need to calm these people down? Sometimes you do, but most of the times you don't. Most times it's just fine. So we are entering the residency interview season.
Oh, yes.
Yes. What sort of recommendations or advice would you give to those who are pursuing a residency position that have gone to a U.S. medical school?
Okay.
Because it might be different.
Yes. No. So I would say good luck. Absolutely. My biggest advice would be authentic, be yourself. You are interviewing for a position just as they are interviewing you. You guys have to make sure it's the same for you and them. Knowing the kind of educational environment that you learn well in. Remember, this is still a training program. You are still being educated during this time. And so even though we might say, oh, well, it's this or that or whatnot, you need to know, do I learn better in a big classroom, a big environment? Do you learn better in a smaller environment? Do you learn better by having direct contact with your faculty staff? Do you learn better when it's more one-on-one? Knowing those things as you go to interview will help you figure out which places are better suited for you. I know that when I went on my interviews, I'm going to say not that long ago, but it was still pretty long ago. You know, I went to some larger programs and I said, this is not for me. I do not want to be 1 in 7 people. Like, that's not where I go well. When I did my breast fellowship interviews, I went to multiple places where they had 2 or 3 because I love people and I want to be with people. And so I was like, oh, it might be great to have a co-fellow or 2. And I learned that that wasn't going to be the best way for me to learn what I needed during that time. So I think really knowing your educational environment will help you also narrow down what programs. And that's also part of being authentic and saying, this is where I learned, this is who I am, and this is how it is.
I know sometimes we have students who are training in the Caribbean, or, you know, in terms of medical school, looking for a potential, you know, position at the United States. And, you know, was there any perspective that you have on that in terms of how do you go about finding a place to call your own?
Yes. So one of the biggest things I'm going to say is, you know, this is where networking comes in. This is where really having contacts and reaching out to people. And it's okay to reach out to programs and say, I'm very interested in this place. Here are the reasons why. This is how it's going to get me there. So I think those are important, is really just finding your mentors who have contacts, having other people who have contacts, and just not being afraid to reach out, because the worst thing they can do is not answer your email, but you haven't lost anything. And so also just being brave enough to reach out, because this is your education, this is your future. So don't ever hesitate to do something, advocate for yourself.
And I love the fact that you just brought up mentor. And sometimes we have more than one. How does a medical student or a resident go about finding a mentor? Are they assigned to you? Do you go search them out? What are you looking for?
So I've been very fortunate in the fact that many of my mentors have been much more organic, but it's hard to do that when you're first coming out. So I will tell you, when I was first going into medical school and those items, as I told you, I didn't really know what I was doing. I needed some guidance, wasn't sure about it. And so those ones were assigned. And when I started as faculty, like, we had a group of mentors that were kind of picked by us, but also kind of guided of what they were. And then as I've gotten older and further in my career, those have really become just more organic in different aspects. And so I have somebody who I would talk to about research. I have someone who I would talk to about clinics. I will have someone who's talking about, like, life in general. And so you'll find out you need a village. You really do, in order to make that happen. And so it's not one size fits all. It's going to be this person, this person, this person. Here's how it fits. And so for the younger people, it's okay to reach out to people and say, hey, how do I want to do it? AWS, has a mentorship program, being just a part of that. The Surgery Reviewer Academy that they just put together as well. That was also another way to meet people who could be potential mentors. So once again, it comes down to networking, getting out there, talking to people, and then also just not being afraid to ask and say, I really like what you're doing. I really want to understand it. Would you mind being, guiding me, being my mentor? Would you mind taking time with me? But then once you do that, you've got to follow through, right? How often do you want to see people? How, you've got to set those expectations up also.
Were all your mentors women, or did you have some men in there too?
I had some men in there. I had more women as I became further in my career. But in the beginning, I will say that, let's see, as a medical student, I would say that Dr. Deborah Cools out of UNLV, she does a lot of trauma stuff. She was also the clerkship director. She had a big impact in my life. Dr. Zamboni, who was the chair of surgery at that time. And as I got into residency and further on, Dr. Dan Kurgan, he's a surgical oncologist. He was probably one of the biggest reasons I started looking at surgical oncologist. And after about a year or two of residency, he recruited Dr. Benosa, Jennifer Benosa, who came back as a breast surgeon. And she was the first breast surgeon that I had ever met. And so that also really impacted me. But for the early part, there was a lot of men, and then it started transitioning as I became older. But I think that it doesn't matter as long as everyone's supportive of what you want to do and they're supportive of you.
I know this sounds really weird, but not all mentorship relations go the way you want it to go. Do you have any advice for some of people how to drop a mentor?
So as soon as you said that, I immediately like started thinking of Frozen, just let it go, let it go. Because sometimes you just have to admit that it's not working. Either the timing's off, or your direction changes, or your values change, or something along those lines. Sometimes they just kind of fizzle out, right? You just don't meet as much. Oh, we were meeting every month, now we'll meet every quarter, and then we're not going to meet anymore, and it naturally breaks off. If it doesn't, if it's just not really going, it's okay to have a little bit of a discussion saying, you know what, I think I'm changing my focus. I think this is where I'm going to go. I'm happy to still work with you if you think that this will be beneficial, but I also want to be respectful of your time. And then that is also a way to say, you know, because mentoring takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to do it well. Mm-hmm. And so if it's not working out, the other person will know as well. I don't think it'll be like a huge bombshell. And so also just opening the door so that you guys can have that honest conversation.
Sounds good. Now you've now gone past just being an attending. You're now mid-career, and you are the medical director of the breast program and the chief of breast surgery at Crozer. What was it like going there? I mean, what prompted you to take that big step?
So I think this, like these gray hair here is from, you know, mid-career right here. So I will say it was a very big step. I was very happy. And what I've learned is, especially during the pandemic, when I talk about core values and like what you're looking for in life and what you really enjoy. So during the pandemic, you know, I really got a chance to sit down and really do some self-reflection about what do I enjoy about my job? What do I want to do? What makes me happy? What is my mission? What is my vision? And kind of making my own personal brand of what I was looking for. And at that time, I said, you know what? I feel good clinically. I feel comfortable with what I've accomplished. I was promoted to associate professor. And I say, well, what do I really want to do? And I found that my personal mission was, how do I make easy access, quality care in the best way for our patients? And then how can I go and take that somewhere? So I was very fortunate. I've been at many large academic institutions, strong, solid ones that have taught me the pieces of what need to be there. And I said, I'm going to take this so that people can get their care in their community, in their close to home. And so I went and made the change of, I want to build a program. I want to help solidify a program that has a lot of the pieces and try to elevate and make sure that, like, what can we do? And so it was really a change of my own personal core values, my own personal mission, and a lot of self-reflection that had me change my position. And it was scary. It was scary. Oh my gosh. I moved across my husband and I do long distance, but it was a big move. It was scary having to be in charge of people and trying to coordinate things. And how do you navigate this relationship versus this relationship? And it was a challenge. I will not lie. It was fun. It was exhilarating. And I've loved every moment of it, but it was scary. And so just knowing that you can do it. And really, once again, it comes out internal validation. I got this. I can do this. But yeah.
I knew you could do it.
It was so scary, Beth.
I'm sure. You changed complete institutions, parts of the country. You've gone from one culture to another culture, subculture, and then a brand new hospital system in a private hospital setting. When you were in academics, I couldn't think of more changes that you could have possibly taken on.
Yeah.
But, or the one thing about surgeons I can give them credit for is we learn flexibility.
Yeah.
That's part of our training. And you were talking about traveling just a little bit earlier, and one of our participants was asking, well, how are you able to travel as a physician? How do you coordinate that, for vacation, for fun, for professional purposes?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we talk about, you hear a lot about wellness and self-care. Like international traveling is one of my self-cares. Like this is not something that is a small thing. Oh, it'd be nice to go here. Like, no, if I do not do this, my self-care is not going to happen. So from my standpoint, like it is a priority, which means that any vacation days that I'm going to be taking, it's where can I go so that I can reset myself? How do I recenter myself? And that's what the international traveling is for. I love local traveling as well, but I like to experience new cultures. Maybe that's why I can go to a whole new culture and subculture and do okay, because I travel as much. But it comes with having great partners who are willing to cover. It is about having great support staff who can manage the things while you're gone, and timing things as well. I will tell you, like I do a lot more outpatient surgeries right before I leave versus inpatients that are going to have drains or whatnot. It's about that kind of planning and preparation, making sure that patients are covering, that they have access. So if my partner's there, but I take about 2 weeks off, and that's just about how you set it up. And it's also really about your partners. They need to be supportive of that.
Now, I know I love doing what I do, which is breast surgery, and you love doing what you do as for breast surgery. But certainly, over the last 10, 15 years, the landscape for breast surgery has been changing with de-escalation of surgery. What would you tell a current resident who might be considering it, but might not be?
That breast is fabulous, but I will absolutely tell you I'm 100% biased that I think it is one of the best specialties. And my husband, who is a foregut surgeon, will say the complete opposite. He's like, oh, it's terrible, don't do it. But he's not here right now. No, so breast, I think there will always be a need for breast surgery. I don't think that's going to go away completely. We have the COMET trial that's doing, the DCIS and do we need to do surgical excisions? There was just the, exceptional responders trial that they were talking about. I think they have 2.5 years of follow-up right now that's looking very promising, but we're not quite there yet. We're doing less and less in the axilla, and we're doing more, but we still are doing sentinel nodes. We haven't quite gotten away from there yet. But I think that there will be a role. It might be less of a role, and then maybe there's more time to do other things and more focus for other items. But I do think that there will always be a need for breast surgery. I don't think we can get away from it completely. But I'm glad that things are de-escalating. Surgery, used to be such a morbid thing. And now we're doing less and less, and we're still getting excellent outcomes. So one thing I will say about breast surgery is that it is one of the most intellectually stimulating fields that I have found. So people say, oh, you do the same 5 operations. Well, no operation's the same. Everything's always a little bit different. But you can very much master the techniques in order to be able to adapt to any of the situations that you find yourself in. But I would say that there is so much that goes into the knowledge of what's the best care, what is the pathway, what is this clinical difference that makes a difference. It is very, very intellectually stimulating, which I find just, it helps me grow, it helps me stay active, it helps me be a part of the community and the world and the research, just to make sure that I stay up to date with everything. But that's what I love about breast. The people are fantastic, the patients are fantastic. It is mentally stimulating, and you can always be adaptable and flexible.
Good.
If I haven't convinced you, I will try harder next time.
Well, you have mentioned, and everyone's picked up on this, that, well, and not what I have known, you've been in private practice, you've been in academic practice, and then you've been in a hybrid academic private practice. So if you could talk about, if somebody's trying to figure out, okay, well, I'm finishing my residency, what do I want to, or my fellowship, what do I want to do? How do you make those decisions? What are the advantages and disadvantages of them?
Okay, so I will sound like a repeat record. You need to kind of know yourself while you're looking through that, trying to figure out what fits you better. I will say that the advantages of being in a large academic institution, there's a lot of support, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of opportunities to grow things and to be a part of something and kind of see how everything works. The people are usually fantastic at these institutions. So you have a lot of benefits being in an academic institution. Now, I will say that from a hospital employed or more community setting, that there's a little bit more, it changes a little more readily. I think sometimes it's a little more adaptable. I think sometimes like they can change their processes and procedures a little bit faster and be a little more reactive to situations. So I think that's nice. I mean, in all my facilities, I've been very blessed. I've had a lot of control over my own schedule and a lot of flexibility to how to work my time. That's not the same everywhere. So that's one of the things that I value when I look at places is, you know, what kind of independence do I get? What type of flexibility do I get? As I mentioned earlier, my husband and I are actually not in the same city. So it's important for me to be able to make changes and be able to leave and have that time and that control. But there's a lot of benefits for either way. And it really comes down to, what do you want to do? I've enjoyed every practice that I've been a part of, whether it's a large institution or in a community setting. It's been a blessing, and I've learned different things in different places. So you learn wherever you go and you adapt wherever you go. And it's just been, I would say, don't hesitate either way.
One of the things that was a part of my decision making was I was planning on getting married. Not that I've met the person yet. I was planning on having a kid once I got married. That took a while too. But I thought in the very beginning, especially, that academics gave a little bit more support in terms of my time and helped to minimize the amount of time away from my family. And I also helped to, I purchased a home with my husband very close to the hospital, within a mile. So then I'm there, zip, I'm home. Well, it's not so much zip, but the zipper, well, closer than other things, but that's one. Now, Sofia has been doing a wonderful job of mentoring some of the questions from the audience. Do you have any more questions, Anna?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Shaughnessy. And I think that I can do this brief pause to officially introduce you as our session moderator for the night.
The late session moderator. Sorry.
No, thank you so much for joining us. I would like to officially welcome Dr. Elizabeth Shaughnessy, current president of the Association of Women Surgeons, and Dr. Reyna's longtime mentor. And we really thought that this was going to be, and it's been a great way of learning a little bit more about Dr. Reyna's path and her journey, and a little bit more about her. And I think this other question from the audience goes a little bit to something that both of you can answer. And it's, what benefits and opportunities, Dr. Reyna, have you found by working and joining AWS?
Oh, I feel like someone just sent me this like giant softball. I love it. I will have to say it has been a wonderful, wonderful organization. I will say that the AWS is a small but mighty, and it's not even that small anymore, organization. And what amazes me is that these brilliant surgeons are so approachable, so accessible, and their mission is really just to help you get where you need to go. They are just truly just wanting to help other women surgeons strive and get to where they need to be. I will say that you just feel that every time you go there, and never have I really ever hesitated to talk to anybody or meet anybody, because I just know that everyone has the same goal there. So one of the benefits is that I know people across the country. I know people not just in breast surgery, I know people in trauma, or if someone's looking for a job, I can say, hey, is there anything open there? Or does anyone know a trauma surgeon looking for this? Like, just being able to have that networking and just having that ability and know that there are other people out there like you. It's just amazing. It really is.
It is. And it's really helpful when things go south. When you meet a problem and you have no idea how to deal with this, it's just completely out of your realm of expertise, your experience and expertise. And perhaps maybe asking somebody at your institution isn't the best idea. So getting an outside opinion, it's good to network. Having all those people to support you, you can reach out and you can get answers. Might even get more than one answer. And it's very helpful. And I just wanted to say, AWS isn't just for women. We have men in our organization as well. So it's, and I think too, the organizations such as the Latino Surgical Society, having all those, those associations. And I love the fact that we're collaborating because you learn from each other, and I think it's really quite helpful because we can grow on each other's knowledge and moving forward, and we can move forward so much faster.
Agreed. So it's been one of the best organizations that I've been a part of.
That's amazing. And Dr. Reyna, you touched base a little bit on this earlier, and about how, when you're a resident or you're a medical student, some people don't have the exposure or the mentorship to know that you should join societies, you should go to conferences. And so for medical students or residents that are currently in that path, what would be your recommendation? How to make the best out of societies, whether it's the breast society, whether it's AWS, what would be your advice to them?
Join early. Absolutely. Because I will tell you that as a medical student, as a resident, I didn't join any societies. I was like, what is this? I think I joined maybe my 4th year of residency, but really didn't get active until I was a fellow. I would say joining early and being present, having your face there, because when it keeps popping up over and over and over again, people will start thinking of you. So if you're there as a medical student and you're there for 3 years and then it's time to apply for a residency, guess what? Your face has been there. And they're like, oh, okay, I remember. So I would say best advice is join early, be active, complete whatever you're going to complete. And you don't always have to be in person. Like a lot of the organizations has a resident or a medical student branch that work independently. They have their own local branches that you can be a part of. Even those will be ways to get your foot in the door and to get started. But I would say the earlier, the better.
Okay, so now it's time for our rapid fire questions.
Oh, wait, let me drink. All right, I'm ready.
Okay, what's your favorite city?
Oh, do I have to keep it in the US or can I do worldwide?
Worldwide.
Okay. So favorite city, it's a tie between London and Paris. I will go back to visit them multiple times. I love them both. In the US, I have got to say Vegas. I love my hometown. I love Vegas. It's a different place every time you go.
Okay. What is one of your distinctive operating room preferences?
No Raytechs on the table. No Raytechs are allowed on the field. They must go.
Okay. And your favorite soccer team?
So hard.
I'm
So,
sorry.
the World Cup comes up, I will always say, got to cheer for Mexico and Germany because that's my heritage is there. I will have to say the Netherlands because my husband, but my personal team, at least in the US, has been the LA Galaxy. That's always been my go-to from the beginning.
And what is your all-time favorite meal?
Capellini Pomodoro with arrabbiata sauce kind of thing. So basically angel with arrabbiata sauce. I will eat that every day. Okay, this is going to be my shameful secret that I'm going to tell you right now is that I will get a box of pasta, only 3/4 of the box. It's the only thing I know how to make also. For anyone who knows me, I don't cook, but I can make pasta. 3/4 capellinis with a jar of like the Rouse arrabbiata sauce. That's it. And then I'll eat it until, I'm so full I can't move.
I'm sorry. I just have to say that I met her after she gave a talk at the AWS meeting, talking about how to subscribe to places like Blue Apron. And then she sold some very funny stories about not knowing the difference between a zucchini and a cucumber. So I'm sorry. But it was so memorable. I mean, it prompted me to go up and meet this woman because, she was honest, I loved it. Okay. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I'd ever received. Once again, it goes back to know your worth, that you deserve to be here.
Okay. What 3 things can you not live without?
people. I know that's kind of like generic, but I'm an extrovert. I get my energy from people. And so not having them around and being in COVID was really devastating to me. So I need to be around people, whether that's family or whatnot. Item wise, this is so hard. I'll say books. I will say, yeah, books. I would love to keep my Netflix TV. I won't lie, because I like to watch shows. And I don't know a third one off the top of my head.
Well, people, books, and Netflix. I think
There we
that's
go.
all.
People, book, and Netflix.
Okay, if you couldn't be a surgeon, any other profession would you like to attempt or try? Is there anything else that appeals to you?
Yes, I want to be a museum tour guide.
Oh my gosh. What kind of museum?
So one of the things I really want to do is this mixes my international travel and my culture, but I want to be a museum tour guide. I want to know all the different things and be able to walk people through and enhance their minds and educate them on different items. And so for me, it's a balance of education and culture that I can't do anywhere else. And so I know it's completely left field, I understand, but I'm kind of a little different.
You can always be a docent when you get older.
Exactly.
Retirement.
Exactly.
Now, how do you start your day?
With about 5 snooze buttons. I am not a morning person. I'm a terrible morning person. I will snooze probably about 3 or 4 times because I just can't wake up. Once I get past that, then I usually start it by just getting out of bed, taking a shower and having my cup of coffee. And I always keep music going. I guess that's also.
Now, one of the things that's characteristic of today's talk and not so much the past is she does have this great cockatiel. Does that help get you out of the bed?
So my Quaker parrot is currently in the other location with my husband, as they are not allowed in my current state. But because once again, I get lonely and I need noise, I bought 2 parakeets. So they also help in the morning. So I have to make sure that, they get uncovered and that they get food and water, and then they chastise me because it's too early. And then that's how it goes. But yes, I will say I claim 3 birds and my husband has 2, but he'll say they're all 9.
Okay. What's the best gift that you have ever received?
Oh.
Oh my goodness gracious.
I don't know if you guys can see. I was hoping it would come into put my face. It is a Maleficent. Oh, I wish you could see it better.
Oh,
Statue of Maleficent that I was, there we go. Here's my face. Giant statue of Maleficent. I love
That's
her. She's my very favorite Disney character. I love purple and black. But that is just phenomenal. It is very solid. I just love it. And I pretty much anything Maleficent that I get, like Dr. Laranga just gave me a Maleficent purse that I just absolutely adore in little pins. So pretty much anything Maleficent.
I saw that. I have a talking Edna mode.
Yes.
If you turn it on and you talk to it, it will talk back to you and ask you questions. That gets a little weird sometimes, but anyway, moving on. How about, what's the best gift you've ever given?
I will say, I think I'm at, that internal validation we talked about earlier. This is where it fails utterly. I think I'm the worst gift giver ever. I struggle giving gifts. And so I think the best gift I ever gave was, probably, I don't know, I will say it was probably a pair of sunglasses and a watch that I gave to my dad because he didn't want to buy it. He needed them. And then I went back and I got it for him, and he was just so touched. And I was like, wow, that was so nice. So that was probably the best gift I've given.
It's not always easy. It's not always easy.
I try. And then there's a rule in my household, by the way, that no one's allowed to buy gifts for themselves 30 days within like the holidays or birthdays. But my husband breaks this all the time and buys what I'm planning on getting him. So I'm like, now what do I do? So this might add to my poor gift giving. I'm going to blame him and not me so much. But yeah.
That's a hard one. I start buying gifts somewhere around now.
That's a good plan.
Just because it's so tough. It's just tough to find time, tough to figure out what you want to buy. And with my college age son, he's like, he never communicates with me, so I have to guess.
Yeah.
Yes. So I just found out that he knows about this virtual band online called Gorillas, which I never heard of before, but Bose has special buds,
Oh.
that are characteristic of the group. So if you wanted to buy them, if you go to their website, you can get possibly a free pair. They're having a raffle of some sort, I guess.
Oh, well,
But-
you know, I've been
Yeah,
very
well,
lucky after
He
8
never tell me about this.
After I won the raffle there, I'm feeling very lucky.
Yes, you did.
I
Well,
wanted to-
go ahead.
I wanted to go ahead and thank you both, Dr. Reyna and Dr. Shaughnessy, for joining us today for this 12th installment of Inside the Operating Room. I wanted to also thank all of our participants who tuned in this evening for participating and asking great questions. If you are interested in learning more about our organization or becoming a member, you can find us at latinosurgicalsociety.org and on various social media channels as @LatinoSurgery. And the recording for this event will be on our YouTube channel shortly. And so thank you once again. It was a pleasure watching you interact. And it's, for me at least, it's been a learning experience of how a mentee-mentor relationship can turn into a friendship as well. So thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.